everyone. This is Seema Mehta along with Deepma Jadeja, my colleague from the Confident Communicator. We are back. I hope everybody had a great Diwali. Happy New Year and Happy Diwali to all of you. We've been talking a lot about different subjects over the last few weeks on imperfect parenting. And we thought, there's one thing that everybody talks about all the time. Your child should follow their passion. And we need to talk about this whole myth of what is this passion. So we thought, let's call somebody who has passion all over her psyche and her persona. This is our fantastic guest, Aarti Kumar Rao. Hi, Aarti. Happy to see you.
Hi, guys. Hi, everyone.
Let me introduce her. She doesn't like me doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Aarti Kumar Rao is a National Geographic explorer. She's an independent environmental photographer, an artist, a writer, and most importantly, a very dear friend of both Deepma and I, a very good supporter of the Confident Communicators. We are so excited that she's here. And she's one person I remember talking to her so many times about how her childhood was and what shaped her childhood and how she got to this point. I remember her talking about how she started off as a science student and she pursued two different master's degree in. Can you tell us what it was? I'll let you talk. How did you get to this point? I'll let you talk. It's best if it comes from you.
So yeah, hi everyone. And thanks Deepma and Seema for having me over. So how it started was that I thought I was very passionate about physics and I wanted to be an astrophysicist because I thought that's what it was all about, watching the stars and, all kinds of really fancy stuff. As I did my master's in physics. I did go ahead and finish my master's in physics. But at some point after doing that, I realized that was just not me. I was in a lab. I was working in TIFR, which is one of the top-notch institutions in the country. So it was not like I was in some, something that was not so good. It was a great place to be, but yet I realized that it was not me. And it was not for me. And I was very fortunate to have parents who absolutely did not force me to stay or guide me in any way. They just said, figure it out, find out, explore, see what you want to do. Okay. And that was very odd because I come from a family of scientists. Everybody's a PhD. And so I was just very thankful to have that kind of pressure taken off me. And I did changed quite drastically. And I started working in this glossy magazine called Society in Bombay.
I remember.
It's got nothing to do with physics or science or anything at all.
How did you jump into that from physics?
Because I was good. I think I was good at writing. I was always top of the class in what in expression and writing and speaking and all of that. So that was something that was a large part of me. And unfortunately, in our growing up days, which was a few decades ago, we had to choose between science and arts. Yes. And I never wanted to choose between science and arts. I always wanted to do both, but I was not allowed to because
Absolutely. There was no choice. It was not available. Yeah.
Right. So I had to choose and I chose science, but there was that part of me that always wanted to write and always wanted to, do photography and so on. It's just expression. I might be writing about science. It may not be that I'm writing about something different, but it's just expression was a large part of me and stuck in a lab was not. So that's how I changed. And after that, life took me to the United States and things were different there. And I did another master's there in graphic design. And then yet another master's. I did an MBA. I was exploring. I was searching. I was feeling, to see where it was that I would tick, what makes me tick.
Yes.
It was not a slam dunk. There are some friends of mine for whom it's a slam.
Well, very clear from the very beginning.
Clear. Yes. Very clear.
Yes.
And for me, it was not clear because I was interested in way too many things. And I think that's I would not call it a problem. A lot of people call it a problem, but I'm interested in a variety of things and I don't necessarily want to choose. So
it's very interesting, Aarti, you say that. I was having a conversation with my daughter, my younger daughter. And if you remember, you had given me some seeds from, I think, was it from Northern Karnataka? You had given me packets of seeds and we were discussing and planning how to grow those seeds. And my daughter Tanaya turned to me and said, how do these seeds, I mean, they stay in a packet for months, and then suddenly if you put them in a pot or in a garden, they start sprouting. Isn't that a miracle? I mean, isn't that amazing? And I said, yeah, if you offer the right ecological balance for that seed, it will grow. And that's how human beings are. And we were both like, whoa, that's big.
It's a great segue.
Right?
That's
right?
a great segue into what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's so important. You know what those seeds were doing in that packet? They
What?
were lying fallow.
They were lying fallow. Absolutely.
And to lie fallow in your life is so important and so underrated and so overlooked.
Yes. Yeah, because
you need that time. It's not downtime. It's just time where you're doing nothing.
Bored. Sometimes just bored. Yes. Yeah. I remember going to trips as a child, and my mom said, and I used to get bored, and my mom said, look out of the window. It's okay, get bored. And I think that concept of getting bored doesn't exist anymore. But I think it does help that lying, just chilling and just thinking about things. A lot of creativity comes from there. A lot of things become clearer when you have that silence in your life. In fact, it was Paulo Coelho of the Alchemist. He said, remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. So where is your heart? When you said that, I wasn't sure that I liked it very much, even though it was very prestigious. Then I went into this glossy magazine. Then I went to the United States. But until your heart says, aha, this is the point where I want to do what I want to do, I don't think we should push ourselves to do something forcibly, because otherwise you will regret it at some point, right? Yeah. So what does it mean to find your passion? What does it mean? What does passion mean to you?
Interesting. That's a question that I have a friend, a childhood friend of mine, and we argue like crazy. People think that we hate each other, but I thank him, and I think Seema, you know who I'm talking about.
I know.
Okay, so I thank him though for pointing me in this direction, because once I told him that I was very passionate about something, and he said, "What the heck does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. What does it mean? What are you doing about it?" And that got me thinking. And that was 2009, 2010. Okay. And that's when I started realizing what I was saying wrong. It's not my passion. It was something that I was good at, and I wanted to spend time learning and doing and getting better at. Correct. So I think passion is almost a misnomer. Mm-hmm. It's something that makes you tick. What is it that you want to spend time in doing, learning, getting better at, and getting so good at that they can't ignore you anymore?
That's right. That's a beautiful distinction.
Get to that point.
Very
when you
nice.
Get to that point.
That is really interesting. Yeah. And I want you to, Aarti, I just want to share some of our students defined passion for us in a class, in one of our classes. And we said, when they started talking, we were talking about, some of the self-reflection activities that we do. And we asked them, just by the way, what is passion? What do you think is passion? Yeah. And they started saying these amazing things. So we said, shush, 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 let us record this. This is amazing. So let me share that clip with you.
Sure, yeah.
Let me
yes,
share screen.
I think sorry. Here we go. I think you have to put the sound also, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so cool. You will actually resonate with what the kids are about to say. It'll be interesting to watch.
Passion is a feeling for a talent. It could be any talent that you love, and you have to do it because you adore it.
A passion is something that drives you crazy. You have a talent which no one else has, and you have it like everyone praises you for it.
Passion is kind of like what you want to do and why you want to do it. And you should follow it, because without passion, you kind of don't have a direction or something.
Passion can be of both types. Something which you want to do, but even though you don't like, something which you want to do although you like.
Passion is something that you like and you're good at.
It's like you can't stop thinking about it. You just can't. If you don't do it, you feel incomplete.
Something you love and you want to do.
Like if you can't, you literally can't stop thinking about it every day, every night.
If we don't, then we'll be very sad and depressed. And we won't feel like that happiness that I have done something great.
Like you don't feel good if you don't do that.
You can't stop thinking about it. It's not your passion. You have to be obsessive about it.
Gosh, the kids had it spot on.
Exactly. And it was so interesting that you were talking about exactly the same thing, the distinction between what you're good at and what you're obsessive about. So can you give us your response to their definition?
Couple of things. Talent, what you're good at, what you want to do, what gives you a direction, what you're obsessive, and what you feel sad about if you don't do. Okay, those are the things that I picked up.
Yeah. One other thing that it was a little soft, and I was just amazed at it, is when he said, when this young boy, I think he's the youngest in our class.
He's 10.
Yeah, and he said that something that you really like to do, but also something that you may not like to do, but you want the end result of, right? So you may not like the process, like you have to work hard, you have to do blah, 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 whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And I gave him that example in class today where I said, that is so cool because I love to train, I love to teach, but training and teaching requires research, and I don't like research. I don't like doing the research, but I got to do it to be a trainer. And so I love that a 10-year-old was able to grasp that and say, you got to do some things, even though you don't like them, if you want to achieve.
Yes, so do you have to be good at something to be passionate about it? Do you always have to be good at it? I mean, let's answer that question.
So no, I don't think so. I think it comes from what I call micro victories. Mm-hmm. So you start small.
Yeah.
But you're obsessive, okay? In the sense that you're not going to get distracted from this, okay? So you start small, you start building your skill. But if it is something that will end up, as you doing what you love, then you will find that the minute you start getting slightly good at something, slightly better than what you thought was possible, it'll start playing. You say, no, now I've got to do one step more. Now I need to do it again. And so every day you train. It's a muscle, okay? This thing is a muscle. It's not some hoo-ha, very, very, warm and fuzzy thing, passion. It's really a muscle. And unless you train it, unless you make it stronger and stronger, you're not going to get there.
And I've seen you do that. I've seen you do that with your art. I've seen you, I remember you starting off drawing today, then tomorrow, then you had a whole doodle book, right? I remember you
I was teaching myself. Exactly, because I didn't know, I've not been taught that. And so I had to teach myself. So it's exactly that, right? And then slowly, like somebody said, somebody praises you for it. It might be something really small, but somebody says, hey, you're good at this. And then you're like, so I am. So then, you start getting confident, and then you start doing it again and again. And then you're obsessive, and you get so, I'm not saying I'm good. I'm just saying that eventually you get so good at something that you start getting recognized for it.
Right? Absolutely.
And then you start making a career out of it. Now, that's when...
And that's the bridge where we have to come to that part where most of our parents are, and all of us, I mean, we all want our children to do well, right? And there are certain steps that you have to go through in order to get to that point. So for example, if our children are in school, they have to get good grades so that they get into a good college, and then that will open up doors for them for their career or whatever. How does all that kind of fit in with this idea of following your passion? How does this all go together?
So let's reframe the question with, how does all of that fit with building your skills up? Because it's really...
We have to change the perspective.
Yes, change the perspective. It's not about passion as much as it is about getting good at something, like really good at something. And when you do that, unfortunately for the kids today, and maybe a little unfortunately for the parents, because it requires a changing of the paradigm. We are in a world which is in flux. Those old notions of, you need to get a job that you can be in for 40 years of your life is no longer true. Right?
Yeah. In fact, I have one statistic that I found. I want to read it out to you. It is estimated that young people will have approximately 18 different jobs over 6 different careers in their lifetime, according to the 220 New Work Order report.
Yes.
So they will have so many different careers and different jobs that they will change over their lifetime, which is not something that you and I, or even probably our parents, have never experienced.
Our parents have never had. I'm in my 5th career.
Correct. So, our parents have the same job for like 40, 50 years, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, and that's what I would tell. Those kids were so spot on, you have to want to learn. You have to want to. So I would say the thing that the parents need to equip the kids with, if they aren't already there, and most kids are probably far ahead of us parents, is to stay teachable.
Yes.
Be adaptable, stay teachable, so that you're picking it up. You're a sponge. You just take it from everywhere. Stay, you stay open. You're wide, you're allowing things to come in. And this is one of the things that I tell every kid that's in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, use your summers to explore, because you don't know what you want to do, and you shouldn't actually know exactly what you want to do, because
nobody should expect them to know at that stage.
Not necessary at all, right? And of course there are some kids that are so driven and they know, which is great, but those kids also should not be afraid to change if they find later on that they're not interested.
And it's not working out.
It's not working out, right? So,
and I always think that there's no age limit on passion. I mean, why is it that, whatever you decided in the first 15, 17 years of your life, now you're stuck with it? No, you're a poster child for, hey, if this isn't working for you anymore, go find something that
actually, even if it's working for you, go find something else.
Make it interesting. I agree.
It's just so like for example, now I would probably say that in 2018, 2019, I was at a point in my storytelling career, which was probably where I kind of was happy. I was really happy, right? But it was already time for me to look
beyond,
different, look at it differently, right? And for me now, that's going to morph into something which is so different. People will call it retirement, but it really isn't retirement. It's something else. It's completely different, and I'm changing that gear, even though I was happy.
Correct. But is there like, so sometimes I feel that there's a gut feeling, right? There's a little bit of restlessness that you experience. Sometimes we don't listen to our gut as much as we should. Those teachable moments are constantly coming in front of you, and sometimes we ignore them because we feel that's the condition or that's the tradition that we need to follow. But I think that's where we are making the mistake. See, we're not saying that, oh, you don't have to get good grades and you don't have to work hard and you don't have to go to a good college. We are not saying that, right? So let's make that distinction very clearly right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in any of these things, and I might be in my 5th career, but there has never been a time when I haven't worked hard. That's not the point.
Exactly.
That is not the point. And it's not that it's not working and therefore you're just giving up and going. You're learning. You're constantly learning. But you get to a point where the learning plateaus. And now you have to go to a slightly different mountain to start climbing again, And you're just traversing the landscape of your life. And
what would you say to, like, for example, today we had a student in one of our classes who said that she has a friend who is very passionate about being a YouTuber. She's probably in the 6th or 7th grade. Okay. She does literally one video a day, and her friend says that she's really good at it. She's very passionate about it. But my dad says that that's really a phase which will go away. No. So this is the kind of conversation and language we are using. And I don't blame the parent completely, but I think that the way we speak to our kids about things like that, which is something offbeat, it's a road less traveled, right? So you don't see all the kids getting onto YouTube and becoming a YouTube influencer or whatever. So what do you say to parents like that who say, no, it's just a phase. This is not a career. You don't make a career out of it. But this is something the child at that point is really enjoying. How do you, what do you explain to the parents? What do you say to the parents in this scenario?
So I guess I want to understand it a little bit better. What is the child doing in her YouTube? So him or he?
I think she. Do you know what she's doing? I'm not sure what she's doing.
She's a YouTuber.
She's a YouTuber. She talks
about. Friend of hers is a YouTuber who does YouTube videos every day. Yeah. And when she told her dad that, Dad, such and such friend.
She's so good at it. She's so good at it. Yeah.
And she's so quote unquote passionate about it. Dad said that's not a real thing.
See, like one of them is an art student, and she presents her art all the time on Instagram. She constantly creates reels and she goes on Instagram.
So listen to what y'all are saying, okay? So there's one person who's saying she's a YouTuber. The other one is saying she's an artist who uses Instagram.
Yes.
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything. These are tools, right?
Yes.
What is that child saying, right? That is expression. That is who the child is. The fact that she or he is a YouTuber doesn't mean, it's just like saying, oh, that person is on TV. Sure, he's on TV, but that's just a medium, right? That's just a tool. Yeah. What is that person saying? Now, if that child is actually spreading awareness about something or is expressing herself in a way that is influencing...
Maybe music or something, I don't know.
Something, right? Anything. Yeah. That is a skill that she's developing, which can be used in different places, you know.
Power to her.
And it's doing so great for her confidence, right? She's becoming the more and more... I mean, I remember when Deepa and I started getting acquainted with social media, we were so not pro social media at all, but then we started, you know, even something like this, doing a Facebook Live is something that we struggled with. But the more and more you do it, like you said, it's a muscle. The more you do it, the more you learn, the more the confidence grows. And I think those are good things for the kids. So I don't know if I want to tell the parents, you know, don't let them do that. I mean, of course, they've got to work hard for their school and their college preparation. But at the same time, I think they should be allowed to explore these.
Totally. You know, in fact, I know that a very well-known Western author, Barry Lopez, in one of his essays, he says that it's about children reading books which are not necessarily good literature. They might be, you know, what they are called trashy things.
Exactly.
And he was like, allow the children to read whatever right?
They want to.
Let them read it, because you don't know what conversations that kid is having with those words.
Yes.
And how that's going to translate later on in life, right? So that kind of thing, it also manifests in these skills that child is picking up. You don't know how she is going to develop later. Sure, it is not a proxy for doing well in school. She has to do that because that is learning. She has to continue to learn. Right? That's not a proxy. But in her off time, if this is how she chooses to get good at something, great. I mean,
I think so. I think that like you said, we had only 3 branches. There was art, there was commerce, and there was science, and we had to pick one. But today, the children have opportunities to kind of mix it up. And you can be a science student and you can be learning political science, or you could be learning art, or you could be learning history, or anything. It could be law. So I think that the children today are in a different world than we were. And therefore, they need to be given different experiences to arrive at their passion, or whatever it is that they want to do in their lives, right?
That's right. And use the tools that they have at their disposal. Why not? If
why
YouTube
not?
is at their disposal, why not?
Just because we didn't have them doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad. You know, I kind of worry about parents who say, but I turned out fine without this, or without that. And I'm just thinking, they're growing up in a different time. So let them, you know, they're spoiled for choice. How lucky are they?
Absolutely. And I've heard parents say things like, I don't think going to a good school is important because I didn't go to a good school and look how nicely I turned out. No. If the child has an opportunity to get best kind of education, why not?
Why not? Yes.
And I think what's really important is that such children, you know, who don't necessarily then have the guidance they're seeking at home, I hope and pray that they find a good mentor, because those mentors will take them to levels that the parents will not even be able to comprehend.
Correct.
It's very important.
And I think as parents, Aarti, I was thinking, just going on to the next thing, was as parents, I think as the child is growing up, and they're growing up much faster than we did. So, you know, we've got to factor that in. I think we stop being as instructional as we tend to be usually, and be more conversational, because that even mentorship, right? When children find mentors, it's people who talk to them and are conversational with them. And that's when, you know, it's so strange. I mean, this is a completely weird example, but my mom just called and, you know, her TV's got broken down, and she was talking about, she lives in Bombay alone. And she said, I wanted to talk to you. And I said, Mom, what am I going to be able to do if your TV is spoiled? And she said, no, by talking to you, I get clarity. You know, when I'm saying something, and that I'm thinking, even children, if you just let them talk, then clarity will come.
Absolutely. Right? Big one. Meet them where they are and allow them, just listen to them.
There was a very nice line by the famous poet William Wordsworth, who said, "The child is father to the man," which means that the kids, we are kids first, then we become adults. And it's a very large part of our life, and it has a deep impact on who we become. So if we don't allow that flourishing to happen to children at that stage, then what kind of adults do they become, right? So, and we also, in our class and in our conversations, we ask the question, who do you want to be rather than what do you want to do? So first you need to answer the question, who do you want to be rather than what do you want to do? So this is a debate, and this is the conversation we bring up in every imperfect parenting series, because we always like to, there's a bit of a difference here, and we always like our guests to kind of take a, what they think about that.
Their perspective.
Who do you want to be rather than what you want to do? Because we focus so much on, you do this, so tumhara ye job mil jayega. If you do this, you'll become a doctor, you'll become an engineer.
Absolutely. Even when we are introducing each other, right? We introduce each other as who that person is, what that person does.
Yes.
Who that person
I
is.
work here, or I'm a VP of this, or I'm a...
In fact, I had written a poem on how I don't fit into any of those boxes. I'm not one like a, writer or a photographer. I'm not just one. And I'm not an ist either. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an artist. If you talk to any of those specialists, they're going to say, no, she's not one of us. So where do I fit in? I'm like kind of this floating entity, which is sometimes here, sometimes there, and that's because I do different things, and I am somebody who does a lot of different things, and it's okay. And I feel that kind of malleability, I see that in this next generation of kids, and it seems to come so naturally
to them. So let's not put them in a box. Let's
not
put them in a box. Let's let them be malleable. Let them be free and floating, right? At the same time, let's also make sure that they learn a skill. Let's make sure that hard work is always part of their life.
Yes.
We are not saying, and I want to make that very clear, that hard work is important. Learning new skills is important. Having teachable moments is important. And like Deepma said, we need to have conversations where we are listening to what they're saying. Just like, for example, the conversation about the seed. If my child is curious about how can a seed be in a packet and then grow into a plant, then I've got to take that conversation seriously. And she says, you might be thinking I'm stupid. And I said, no, not at all. In fact, this makes me wonder how important the environment of the child is in order for them to bloom or blossom into a beautiful plant. So I think that ecological environment is very important even for our children.
Right? Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I can't stress the thing about hard work. Like somebody said, right? You're never given the power to dream without also being given the power to make it come true. And that power is nothing but hard work.
Absolutely.
It's really hard work. I mean, and you can't, none of them, right? Usain Bolt didn't get up one morning and win.
And just became a runner.
It's not like that. Steffi Graf didn't do. I mean, all these people, they work at it. Approach your life like an athlete does. You have to do it day in and day out. Go and not just running on track. He probably also does squats. He does other things. He goes and looks at a stream for 10 minutes, doing nothing, allowing his mind to regenerate, to allow all kinds of things to happen in the mind. There are different ways that you train. It's not just training. When I say training a muscle, it is not literally training a muscle. It's just working at something, getting good at something. And that can be many things,
In fact, there is the author of The Sapien, Yuval Harari, right?
Mm.
He actually every year takes a 2-month meditation camp. He goes into this 2-month meditation camp because he's a very well-known historian who has made a lot of predictions about how our future is going to be. And one of the things he talks about is adaptability. He talks about that. And some of these gems that he comes out with comes through his meditation, because he spends 2 months of doing just nothing.
Yeah.
Just internal reflection. And not all of us, of course, have the opportunity to do these kind of things. However, it is important, I think, for children to have something called a free time where they're sitting around and doing nothing, right? And I can't stress that enough. I feel like I remember struggling with one of the trips that we took to Africa together, when my daughter was probably in the 7th grade. I can't even remember how long ago it was. And I had to fight with the school to get her to leave for the vacation. And I said, no, it's important for her to explore this.
Yeah.
And it's fine if she misses school. It's okay.
So I pulled my daughter out regularly since she was, I think in this 2011. So she was 10 years old. From when she was 10 years old, regularly until she reached the 10th standard. And 10th standard December, just before the mocks or whatever, I pulled her out of school for 10 days, and we went to Arunachal Pradesh hiking.
Yeah.
And she actually fought with me tooth and nail all the way to the airport. So much so that my driver started to, kind of pacify her and say, don't worry, beta, you'll do well in school. Now you'll not miss anything. And she was so petrified. But the minute we got into the plane and she started looking outside, out of the window, and we reached there, the experiences she had with living in a tribal home there and things like that, those are invaluable. And there was so much time that she had to herself. There was no network there. She had no contact with anybody other than us.
Yeah.
And so no distraction. And she just, it was just...
It probably did amazing stuff for her mental health, right? And today, mental health in teenagers, especially in children, young children, is such a big concern. We are so worried about how anxious our children are. We are so worried about the depression and all of that conversation that is going around. Yeah. But we are not giving them the space to be free, because that's not what we do.
Yeah.
Everybody has to, abhi tum 10th standard mein ho, tum nahi kar sakte ho.
Correct. Because, the analogy that you brought up and which I constantly give whenever I talk is of ecology. It's like, you take farmland, and if you push it and push it and push it, you can put lots of fertilizers and lots of, chemical manure and things like that and increase the yield. Eventually, that land is going to become saline and you'll not be able to grow anything on it for decades. Right?
Yeah.
Instead, if you go back to the traditional way of agriculture, where they rotate crops and they leave the field fallow for a whole season, then the rains will come and then again they will sow it and it'll come up, and it can go on for, I have visited farms that have been continuously active for 800 years. 800 years, the same farm. Wow. So imagine that is what nature is. And we are nature. We are part of nature. We're not apart from nature. Exactly. And that is how even our mind is. You have to irrigate it. You have to let it lie fallow. It will bloom. It will create new connections. You just have to give it, its due.
Exactly. You have to create that environment for the children to experience all of these things. And that's exactly what we want to say. And so exciting. This conversation can go on for probably the next 2 hours. But anything you want to say, Aarti, before we end? We have been struggling with what we should give the title of this particular series today. Because we don't want to say follow your passion. We don't want to say follow your passion. We do want to say empower your children so that they can follow their passion, for sure. So any suggestions on what we should name this?
I'll go back to this very interesting talk by Cal Newport that I heard.
Cal Newport, yes.
Yes.
Get so good they can't ignore you, right?
Exactly. I think that's what it is. Just get so good that they can't ignore you. That should be every child's mantra.
Absolutely.
And if that's there in your head, you can't go wrong.
I think you just titled this session.
Get so good they can't ignore you. And I think, I hope all the parents are going to watch this particular episode, because it's a very important one in the way which how we raise our kids, how we speak to our children is very, very important. Thank you, Aarti, so much for this fabulous conversation. And we will continue this offline for sure.
Absolutely.
But, all the information about what Aarti does, we will be putting it up on our Facebook page as well as on Instagram. This will go on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Do tune in and we will see you next time. Thanks a lot, Aarti.
Thank you, guys. Thanks and all the best.
You.
Bye.